Record. So, good morning, good afternoon, depending upon where you are in this fine, troubled country. My name is Samsara Morgan. I, I'm going to claim that I am the director of the fan board. Um, also, the founder and executive director of the Oakland Better Birth Foundation in Oakland, California. Um, Mom, grandma, doula for many years, and got a brand new grandbaby that just came yesterday. So when this is done, I will be going off to kiss his beautiful little brow and be happy. Um, and I welcome you all for being here. I wish that we could gather as a community for happier news and happier discussion, but we will discuss what we will discuss. Um, I and the other members of the fan board felt it was very important that we have some sort of communication with the greater birth community around what happened with regard to our experience on being on this board, um, and and leave it up to the community to actually be a community, hopefully, and take some action regarding what what has happened. Um, Midwifery is seriously struggling in this country, and stories like this and incidents like this are not helping. So our goal here is complete transparency and emotional debrief. I personally feel injured by this process that I've gone through with this board. Um, and others who don't even know what happened have been injured by it. So that's how I want to start with what I want to say. Um, but we're going to kind of go in a bit of an order. And I've asked Deanne Graham to speak first, since she is brilliant and holds a lot of institutional knowledge on the story that we're talking about.
And I am Deanne. I was an activist starting in the 90s. I began the movement to decriminalize midwives in Virginia. I practiced for a short season when we lost our midwife due to political shenanigans, and many women who had gone to her were not going to go to more medical model midwives, and I got pressed into service. I eventually went back to school and finished my bachelor's and got a master's degree in patient and health advocacy from Sarah Lawrence. I am a scholar of the social medicine, history of social medicine with a focus on women's health, writing a book about Virginia midwifery. I've been on the fan board for 3 years, and I was tasked on the first group I was with and each board afterwards. There was a known transparency problem. The board that resigned in August of 2020 was quietly trying to fix that problem. And there was some miscommunication between the then MANA board, which was also wanting to clean up and fix the transparency problems with FAM. So we inherited this organization that was known for having these issues and asked to clean it up and restore the integrity to the Foundation for the Advancement of Midwifery and have it live up to its name. But we were stopped by those who benefit from the lack of transparency and the small group that has been controlling both FAM and MANA for several years now. Um, it was a wonderful opportunity for a lot of people to move past the virtue signaling that is so dominant in the midwifery crowd, and actually not just midwifery, but that's what we're talking about now. And just restore some real honor and put their actions where their mouth is. And we're really sad that that did not happen. So there's our backstory. If you need to know more, you can go to the FAM page where we wrote the story of what happened, and we have the receipts. And those are just the most important one. I've got lots of paperwork. But in a nutshell, FAM is the charitable auxiliary of MANA. It is not unusual for organizations, like I do a lot of research and had an internship at the Library of Virginia, and they have their foundation that does things for them, and donations can be written off taxes. So 50c3. And that's what FAM was. And it is an independent board. MANA is not to have any say on monies, activities. We are our own entity. So in the beginning, because they really did not get started until about 2003, money went to establish such as MANA Stats, MEEK, NARM. And then once that got going, there was a lull. And money started getting, lack of a better word, laundered for people in positions to escape taxes. And we were trying to put a stop to it when not following board or Connecticut laws, we were shut down. To this day, they have not followed the board regs, bylaws. And we were told that at best it is unethical, and at worst it is illegal. But $78,000, which is what was frozen and taken away from FAM, isn't that much money to people. The lawyers we talked to said, you have a case, but you have no money. And here we are. So how does this affect me? I am so disappointed. I kind of said it a little bit there with when you get on social media and people like to call each other out. And here we had a moment to take so much of midwifery that has been put into a small group of hands and build community and really make it both, what are the words? Equanimity and egalitarian, and not something that belongs to a group of sorority sisters. And I'm embarrassed. It will be in my book. And I find no pleasure in what I'm going to have to write. Because I wanted us to be better than this. And we're not. So I'm done.
Thank you, Deanne. take a moment and have a breath. So, as I said, I'm Sub-Saharan Oregon. I was invited into this board. What was it? Just a little bit after the end, correct? I mean, you were here, you invited me in.
Yeah, I think it was the spring of 2021.
Sounds right. You were all COVIDing. Um, and I was very honored to be invited in. There were issues with myself and another person on the board, which I won't get into. Um, that person ended up leaving the board, and I was asked to be president of the board. And with again, uh, I was very honored to step in. I felt that the focus of FAM was very noble. The advancement of midwifery was very much needed in this country. Midwifery is becoming unrecognizable to the art that it's meant to be, that actually secures and saves and empowers uh, mamas, birthing people, and their babies. And so uh, I was very happy to step in. Also looked at this board, and I set about to invite the most brilliant people that I am blessed to know in the world, brilliant younger folk who could be uh, brought in with their fire and their integrity and their devotion to the birth world uh, to come in and start FAM on a trajectory into the future uh, uh, that was solid and that could make some sort of impact into what I saw. Uh, uh, I wanted to have a more racially diverse body of people, and I wanted to have a more diverse group with regard to sex uh, and gender expression and orientation, all of those things that are deeply important to have when we're having a real conversation about families and babies and midwifery. And made amazing steps in doing that and bringing people together who were very excited and who wanted to uh, who read the mission, were excited by the mission, and were ready to get our boots on the ground and to start funding things that would uh, have people know that, what the actual uh, purpose and mission of a midwife is, uh, how that's different than medical care. With all due respect for medical care, there are times when it's needed, but midwifery is its own precious thing that should not disappear from the earth. And that's what's happening because we have people who call themselves midwives who are sounding more and more medical by the day. And we have a profession that is severely underrepresented by uh, by people of color and by people of other gender expressions. So we were really excited about this. We had board members that had been quote unquote approved by uh, Mana. We had another crew of folks that needed to come on and get approved. Um, Lots of conversation with them about, uh, come on, can we get our people approved? But then there was a desire for a certain group of people to attend a conference. Uh, I'll just say it's a conference in Bali, and they presented us with this big bill, basically, of how much money they would need and what they were using it for, and uh, things like socializing were on this bill. Things like there were things that had nothing to do with how this particular trip per se was part of FAM's mission. I could see that it was sounded like a wonderful conference, and I could see why they wanted to go. I didn't see where any representation of FAM per se in that. Um, and accommodations that were being asked for that people on the board were saying, well, we could get these accommodations for cheaper. And our goal, our responsibility as a board is to not just willy-nilly be spending this money, to spend it as judiciously as possible and according to the mission of the organization. Men has refused to have any conversations at all with this board with regard to that. And as we continue to press the issue, saying for A, can we get our board members approved by y'all? And B, can we have a conversation about your request? Lo and behold, we find that our account has been seized by Mana. And so we were stripped of the ability to do work, to hire representation, to move forward, uh, to uh, to function as a board, other than to talk to each other and support each other, and to start sharing with the community everything that was happening. And so, as Deanne said, if you look at the the FAM Facebook page, you can see everything that happened, all the receipts, all the germane receipts of what happened when it was happening to us. So complaints have been filed, and we will be following up on the complaints with whatever state bodies regulate this sort of thing. I was pretty dumbfounded to hear that one organization could just go and have another organization's accounts seized. I've never heard of such shenanigans in my life. Um, uh, that absolutely can't be legal in any way, shape, or form. And part of our plan before all of this really hit the fan was we were going to start funding projects that specifically were about the advancement of midwifery. That was specifically about uplifting uh, birth workers of color and supporting them in their work, helping there to be more home birth midwives of color, and groups that were helping families of color to be able to access midwifery care. That was what I was profoundly excited about. That should be what FAM should have been all of about. But instead, we got mired in this ridiculous, and in my opinion, criminal situation of a group of privileged people wanting to go off to Bali to have a good time. That to me is reprehensible. It's not defensible in a country with the mortality rate that this country has, with the majority of those people on that mortality rate being brown and black people, being people of color. So how this has affected me is I personally feel disgusted, angry, sad, depressed. I very much would like to be a midwife in this country one day. I've been working really hard at it. I can see with shenanigans like this going on why it's been so bloody difficult for me to be able to be a midwife. I see so many people signing up to go to nurse midwifery school because that you get a lot of debt, but at least you will get to be a nurse midwife if you you know uh, if you follow the rules there, it works. But to give the diversity that's really needed to have safe birthings in this country, we have to have Indigenous midwifery. We need to have home birth midwifery, and we don't. So I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm sad. So many people told me to not get involved with this. But I'm not one of those people that just can walk away when someone I don't do what I'm told. which used to be a good founding thing for a founding energy for a midwife to have. Um, and I think at this point, I can do what I can do is to make sure that as many people as possible know about it. And if there's some way to heal this, it would be fabulous. I don't know what that might look like, but I'm sad for the young people that I brought in to this situation that they can see their elders acting so deplorably. And I appreciate why generally in the culture there's no respect for elders because they're seeing shit like this. So who's to blame them? Who, who could possibly blame them when the people with the gray hair behave this way? It's disgusting. And so that's it for me at the moment. Uh, we have next on the list as Kofi. Are you available to talk now, Kofi?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mama Sarah. My name is Kofi Bullock, and I was invited to join the board a little over a year ago by Mama Sarah. And I am a certified birth and postpartum doula, trained under Mama Shafia Monroe and certified under Mama Elena Broach of Ahava Birth and Beyond. And when I was invited to the board, immediately I thought of the different ways that we could impact change in this community. Specifically, I work with the fathers. So I knew that there was a need for fathers who are expecting and to support their spouses. And immediately I got excited. My gears started to turn. And as I thought about all the wonderful things that we could do with the resources that we could provide to those who are aspiring to be and those who have goals similar to ours on this board. But unfortunately, the sad reality is what happened. And we were essentially stripped of our abilities to support the community in the way that we all wished to do so. And with the fact that we weren't able to do that, it is a clear reminder as to why things are the way they are in this country and how people and organizations can easily get away with the murder of babies. And it was you know, it's an unfortunate reality of where we are. And I'm usually one to keep my words short. And so I will keep that there. I will leave that there and ask for the next person to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Kofi. Jesselyn.
Hello, my name is Jesselyn Ballerano. My first encounter with midwifery was as a 4 or 5-year-old in upstate New York in the early 90s when home birth midwifery was essentially being criminalized during election season. And so I came into adulthood with a consciousness that midwifery was marginalized. I didn't know a lot, but in undergraduate university, I wrote my thesis on US hospital birth and became very invigorated to pursue midwifery and midwifery advocacy as a result. I studied the Heart and Hands curriculum with Elizabeth Davis in California. I remember I attended my first, I don't know if it was my last, but my first MANA conference in 2012. I interviewed a lot of midwives to figure out my path. And I soon, thankfully, gratefully found myself apprenticing with Mamisi Samsara Morgan at the Oakland Better Birth Foundation. And I've been a doula and childbirth educator since 2014. I was invited to join the board in the late summer, early fall of 2022. And at the time, I was given a heads up that due to COVID and due to past board politicking and the relationship between FAM and MANA, that I was entering into something of an administrative mess, because we hadn't been, with the exception of Deanne having been present for some of those transitions, we hadn't been formally onboarded as a new board. And so when I arrived to FAM, we had this mire of administrative and bookkeeping mess that had essentially been abandoned by prior boards and processes. And so we actually spent the majority of my first year just trying to figure out the status of our organization, that being everything from who played what roles to, you know, the board rules and regulations, to the status of our accounts, to the process for grant giving, the administrative needs of keeping our organization properly in compliance, and even just figuring out, okay, what is our status? How much money do we have? What can we do with it? And how does that process work? So that took us some time to figure out, but we did. And so by fall of last year, we were ready to take on some new board members and actually start funding projects, which was exciting after about a year of, you know, just cleaning up what we had been given. I felt excited about the projects we were planning to fund, and we were actually ready to write checks on the day that our bank accounts were frozen. And to some of the things mentioned earlier, with infant and maternal mortality and morbidity most greatly affecting Black and Brown people in the United States, I also am a firm believer that when we support the most excluded or most marginalized of a community, we lift up access and choice and empowerment for everyone. And my heart has always been that people have the option to choose home birth midwifery. I won't go into all the wonderful reasons that I believe that. I think most people here have their own perspective on that, but something that I loved about being on the FAM board was that I was in alliance with other people who saw the art and the craft and the science of midwifery as essential to all community health. And so some of these projects included Black birth worker scholarship funds. They included Indigenous and tribal initiatives. We really were focusing, though, on small grants for impactful community-based projects. And Deanne had mentioned that some really not being a high number if you speak to a lawyer or if you speak to a large international regulatory or nonprofit agency. But the amount that was requested for this conference in the late fall, while that may cover 14 days of fun and recreation with some networking for a few unnamed people, people who were unnamed in the request, I should mention, that same amount could be life-making for midwifery students, for small community-based organizations, building birth centers, or creating educational initiatives. So while that amount might not be a lot in the grand scheme of philanthropy and corporate giving, and the medical system at large, that amount of money could be definitive in a group or a person's process to actually successfully becoming a midwife. And we were able to sponsor and attend a few conferences in the last year where the majority of the themes were that individual advocates and students and practitioners trying to create community-based access to midwifery care in an equitable way were not able to do their work because of the funding challenges that students face, because of the ways that systemic racism has excluded advocates and traditional workers from integration into the system. I heard again and again from practitioners across the country, particularly in the Deep South, but really across the whole nation, just how difficult it was, and in some ways seemingly impossible, to become a traditionally focused midwife. And in those conferences, while there was a lot of connection and celebration, there was also a lot of grief that people felt like they had to choose a path that felt less aligned with their goals and less in integrity with the kind of midwifery they wanted to practice. So I was very excited that even these small bookmarks that we were planning, $3,000, $5,000, that these could be life-changing for groups and communities that were trying to do this work. When this request for this conference came through and we reviewed it and we asked additional questions and were not able to get additional information, and were denied collaboration to meet and discuss, while I feel like I say this in every advocacy space I am in, I was not surprised, but I was deeply disappointed. And I'm 35. I love midwifery, but I feel like a sister peer to my elder Mamisi Samsara sometimes in my jadedness and in my disappointment, because I still work in the perinatal space and I see how our system is failing families every day. I work in a nonprofit in Eugene, Oregon. I work directly with families. I worked in Oakland, California for a long time, and I've probably heard hundreds of stories, and I'm sure between the 23 people here, we've heard thousands of stories. And the vast majority of positive experiences that I hear are from people who've received care from midwives. And the vast majority of experiences that I hear from people having a negative experience have been pushed through a medicalized system that they didn't want to participate in, but didn't feel that they had access to other options. So I just want to reiterate, my experience with the board members of FAM has been positive. The people here today and a few others who couldn't make it today, it really felt like a very heart-centered practice among a group of volunteers who are working and parenting and doing our best to both survive and show up for the values that we care deeply about when it comes to protecting birthing people and infants. But our encounters with Manna, and the history of that I've gotten to learn from Deanne really has been a reflection of nepotism, white supremacy, and very much a corporate patriarchal model of how monies can or should be used to protect power. My understanding is that this kind of use of funds, of kind of uplifting a very small select group of people who have a lot of power in the midwifery world, but maybe aren't representative of the clientele and the practitioners on the ground working really hard to do the work. I'm not to say that they don't do hard work on their own, but that practice of monies uplifting and protecting the few. I mean, we could go back to we could look at like the Rockefellers. I mean, it's such a mirror of the same forces that have held midwifery down for centuries. So that's been disappointing, because back in the 90s when I was 5 and I learned about midwifery being criminalized, by the time I was in my 20s, I thought, oh, this doesn't happen anymore. We don't hunt midwives. We know the power of community-based care. We know the power of centering marginalized voices. We know the importance of the stories of Black and Brown and Indigenous and traditional midwifery. And so that's how I came into my work as a student and a birth worker. But I'm now, 10 years later, I am deflated. I will not say I'm defeated, but I am deflated. And that is not the trajectory I had hoped for or imagined we would be at in 2024. There's so much, there's so many amazing community-based initiatives happening, and all they need is our support. That's all they need. There are people who are on fire to make change in their community, but without us being able to give them, again, these relatively small grants and funding, it's a lot harder for them to do their work. So it's an uphill battle that, again, I'm not surprised to have found myself in, but certainly disappointed, and certainly a lot of grief for the missed opportunity, both for the practitioners and for the families, who I think these days are more confused than ever about the options they have and the power they can access if they turn to something outside of the system handed to them by their insurance companies. I'll pause there.
Thank you, Jesselyn. And then we have Barbara.
Hello, everybody. My name's Barbara Grace. I'm happy to see a few elder midwives that I've interviewed on this call. That makes my heart sing. I am 69. I've been in this birth advocacy field since 1975 when I was first pregnant. I am a retired midwife, forcibly so. I've been jailed in the state of Colorado, arrested when we had no laws for midwifery. So I've seen all sides of the wickedness that comes down on midwifery, you know, from the patriarchal system. When this particular, you know, event happened in April of last year, I, like Jesselyn, was not surprised, but I was very disappointed because I too shared an enormous amount of hope for what our potential could have been as an organization. And we were really starting to gel as a group. I love this board. You know, I just felt like finally maybe it was an avenue that I could work with to help sort of save the elder midwifery model as well. And like everyone else has said, you know, dreams were sort of dashed by this absolute crazy event. In the short run, it was really horrific to experience. I too felt sad and disappointed and mad and incredulous and confused and all those things. But now, as time has gone by, I'm starting to see that at least it's given me a smack in the face clarity about how much or how little, excuse me, integrity is really in, you know, happening in midwifery. I have always been a person who's tried to be eternally optimistic, and this was like, whoa. It was really a slap in the face for a while. So I'm recovering from that. Along the way, myself and Peter Kofi were ghosted, as we were the ghosted members, not members, because at the same time that we were about to come on the board and be approved by MANA was when this whole thing about the conference and they wanted their money, and that was their focus. So Peter and I aren't official board members. We're just board members in the heart. But that was really frustrating too, because I'm the oldest member of this board and I've been at this a long time. And at first I thought, are they discriminating against me, you know, because of my age? Are they because I have a big mouth and I'm well known in the, you know, in this community for speaking my truth, even when I'm the only one in the room that's doing it? So I wondered about that. But that again ties into, you know, some of the things that I felt about it. I feel like it's aside from being a slap in the face, it's also a very, very loud clarion call for us to start really standing for midwifery. I think that there's been a lot of fear around, oh, what will people say? What will people think? How will I be responded to or reacted to in the community if I stand up and say, you know, there are people dying in birth in the hospital and we need to have more home birth midwifery care? That's my truth, and that's what I'm going to stand for. And this whole you know, experience has just sort of solidified that for me. I'm hoping that the complaint that we issued against MANA will have some effect. I'm hoping that that will be a step towards getting some integrity back. I don't know. We'll see. We haven't heard back yet, so we don't know. I'm hoping that as we record this call and as it goes out into the community, that people will feel inspired to really get involved. The traditional midwifery model is going to go away if a bunch of us don't start standing up for it, because the patriarchal model is getting so big and is becoming so entrenched on a cellular level with people that, well, for me, it's a travesty that almost doesn't have words to describe it, how big it is. So I invite everyone here to really share this message and really stand for midwifery, regardless of where you are in the system. You might be a nurse midwife, you might be a doula, but we need to stand for all facets of midwifery in integrity and in solidarity. And we need to come together as a community. We need to stop operating out of our trauma and our shame and come together and coalesce into a front that stands once again for birthing people and babies and healthy births. And that time is now. It's not, oh, well, it's now. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara.
Yep.
So all of the board members have spoken. We want to have some time for feedback from the folks who graciously gave up their time today to be with us. So let's open it up for questions. We're not going to go into anything too deep or too long. I think that, if we want to set up other meetings to do that kind of a conversation, I'm really open to that. But I want to say again, like the story is there on the FAM board Facebook group to read in depth. But any questions or comments, I'm open to hearing right now.
Looks like Kate Finn has their hand up.
Can you hear me? I'm on my phone, so I don't know how to operate things like
We
microphones.
can hear you.
All
We
right,
hear you.
thank you. Thank you for taking my comments. I'd like to just extend what you said. Absolutely what every person said touched my heart very deeply. I'm a 30 or 35-year practicing midwife, and I've retired. During the time of my midwifery career, I saw and watched MANA go through decades and decades of chaos in their leadership teams throughout the years. It's why I didn't get involved, because I don't need that kind of drama in my life. I really appreciate that you guys are willing to get involved, knowing that was the history. I'm a change agent, and my major focus of my entire career is establishing collaborative relationships with the medical community, because we need those, and we need to be respected, and we need to have easy access and care that's appropriate for our clients when they need that medical care. So I've spent decades working on that. Part of that process, the essential part of that process that has been MANA's main contribution to changing the system in the United States is MANA Stats. I've contributed to FAM over the years, every year for many years, so that MANA Stats could have that kind of funding. I can't even tell you how upset I am that MANA Stats is put at risk by this. It is what is the essential piece that the system will listen to is our statistics.
Right.
And now that that's not the primary focus, or one of the primary focuses of FAM, I don't know how that's going to be supported. The second thing I want to say is, as a retired midwife who has watched the transition of midwifery toward equity. When I started, that was not even on the radar screen, right? We were just trying to survive. We were trying to have practices that were viable. And now that we can extend that to equity in all factors, as a retired midwife, I'm looking for the venue where I can make contributions, financial contributions, to empower that process, to empower that future of midwifery. That is where midwifery future lies. And I am at a point in my life where I'm looking at my estate planning. I'm looking at where I can have contributions. And I had always seen FAM as the viable opportunity for that kind of contributions to increase what I've done in the past. I don't see that in other midwifery settings where I can give that kind of contribution and feel like I'm going to get my values met. The fact that you have a very strong advocacy for proper financial management, and also the value system to reach out to those community members that I don't have access to, but need support. I think it's a perfect match for those of us who have gone through our careers and are at a place now where we're looking at continuing our impact by financial contributions. I don't think that I can get that in any other midwifery organization. And now this has been, the plug has been pulled on this. And I just want to say thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for your financial integrity. And I'm watching carefully and would love to support any way I can. But I think that's what the contribution that I can add to this conversation is how are those of us out who are willing to start putting our money behind these kind of values going to ever trust that when MANA is now taking over and doing this kind of power play, how are we going to trust to be able to do that? And what damage that does to then what you're talking about are the goals that we all need to be supporting going forward. And that requires money. And so it requires integrity for those of us who can contribute at this stage in our lives. More on the money side, because my time of being a midwife and contributing there when you're just barely hanging on to everything else in your life. That part is behind me, and I'm looking forward to my impact for the future. So that's what I have to say, is that the financial integrity that you're seeking is essential for us to move forward with midwifery equity in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to say anything?
I have a question.
I would. Go ahead.
Please, Stephanie.
My name is Sharon Asplund. I was active in the midwifery community in the early 90s when I was having babies. I was active in Connecticut, and I was kind of involved with Citizens for Midwifery back then. I moved to the Seattle area to attend Seattle Midwifery School, but I was a single mom and I couldn't figure out a way to make it work. So then I became an accountant, and I would love to, with whatever changes come from here going forward, I would love to participate on the board and be a treasurer or assist in the bookkeeping or whatever you need, because that's what my career has been since moving to Seattle. And I'm really curious to know, has the board discussed just starting a whole new organization and starting over and moving forward, regardless of what's happening all around you, and just let those chips fall where they may and just continue forward as a new organization with these values in place and with the efforts that you tried to make in place? So if you could speak to that, I'd be really curious to know.
I'll typically speak for myself. Other board members can speak for themselves. I think that right now, I am in a place of healing and regrouping, and this group has a sincere affection for each other, and so we will see what can be born of that affection, whether that's another organization or some other way to uh, further the cause that we all showed up for. Um, um, I feel personally that I'd like to see a lot more community engagement just than just a few people who were on this board. I'm very disappointed that a call was put out for this conversation. And although no disrespect to the folks who are here, but there should be many more people here. Because
And there should have been many more people that were upset when this started.
and that's very troubling. You know, I'm I like to think that I've outgrown my codependence. There was a time when I would just be the lone soldier doing this shit, and I'm a granny now several times, and I'm kind of like I have the health problems to show for that attitude. It's not viable. It's not sustainable. Um, for me to do it while others are watching me do it or watching me and a group of people do it is no longer exciting to me. I would like to see uh, a united front behind midwifery, where,
And integrity.
well, yes, that would be nice. I would like to see, a group of humans of all races and all sexes and all gender expressions and orientations saying that we're gonna fight for midwifery, and then I will definitely be there.
Barbara, oh, I'm sorry, Sarah.
Go ahead. I was closing.
Barbara Rothman.
Hi. Yeah, I'm not a midwife. I'm probably the oldest person in the Zoom here. I want to talk about the history of Mana and the tragedy of what has happened. I was at the first Mana meeting. It sounds like whatever to say it. I'm the person who coined the language, the midwifery model, and said in contradiction to the medical model, it's based on patriarchy and technology, the medical model. And that was early on. It was the birth of my first kid with a feminist obstetrician. I talked into doing it and saw she didn't know what she was doing. So I then did a dissertation exploring midwifery and medicine. Mana in its early days was exactly what we're talking about. They brought in the nurse midwives and the people who were totally unrecognized. I remember an early meeting, they brought up what were then called the grand midwives from the South. They brought them up, they were there, they honored them, they learned from them. It really, it was wonderful. It was doing the good things. How do we take it back over? How do we make the revolution? I don't know. But I really don't want us to disparage what Mana was and what it was accomplishing as we see what it is now. Yeah, I find this just as I can't tell some of you are feeling it too. We're all going to cry. It's tragic what has happened, and I don't understand why, and I don't understand how, but I kind of don't want to, whatever it is, throw that baby's midwife out with the bathwater, that we take everything that Mana was and just say, oh, yuck, they were never working for us. They were doing what we want done. Is there any imaginable way to take it back?
Pull up their website right now. They're not maintaining their website.
They're a mess. They're gone. They're a mess.
Yeah. The only thing that they have done in the past year is try to get a laundered inheritance to go to Bali and disparage us.
No, I'm not in any way saying what they're doing now is what I want them to be doing. I'm just saying there was something wonderful there. Is there any way of reclaiming it?
I think know that I'm feeling your pain, Barbara. I feel the sadness in what you were saying. And I don't want to add to it. I feel it in my own way. But MANA wasn't serving women of color. MANA wasn't serving brown and black people, trans people. Those folks weren't being served by MANA, and they needed to be.
Very early years, there were black midwives.
They absolutely were.
Years. They really, I met them. It was there early
Oh
on.
my goodness, my dear. So that's okay. There were a few people. I know that, but I'm looking at women like me dying like flies in this country just for having a baby.
Absolutely. And it was one of the things that was so super about what MANA was doing was they also brought in the nurse midwives who are working in crap situations in crap hospitals in poor areas, which were overly disproportionately Black, and working with that. So as I said, I'm not defending what MANA is now. I just think that early image of what they were trying to do and who they were bringing in was not all negative. And I've worked on this, and yeah, whatever. This is, I'm sure you know Keisha Good's work. I supervised her dissertation. She looked at what was happening with Black midwives. She also explored that early history. It didn't start off as an ugly organization. That's all.
Yes.
I hear what it is now, but it didn't start that way.
You can clearly honor how it started, and that's part of the grief of what it is now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to me, it raises the question of that notion that could you make an alliance of midwives of all stripes in educational and workplace environments? Could we do what MANA was doing again? And honestly, I'd like to just bump out who's there, take the name, and recreate MANA.
Yeah, they have less than 150 members,
Yeah, because
and a good portion of those are lifetime memberships of past presidents.
it's
In the
gone.
documentation and the oral interviews I'm doing, MANA started going sideways about 2005 when they wanted to be in the international big girls table, and what they were doing here in the States just went to the wayside.
Yeah, so can we recreate a new version of what MANA was doing?
We will, part of the healing process of this particular board is to decide about that. And I'm for taking the good things that were done and with a whole new energy, and starting out really balanced from the very beginning and staying that way.
I would add to what Samsara's saying that, and reiterate once again that I I'm optimistic that could happen, but it cannot happen unless we have an army versus a neighborhood of people behind it. And Barbara, I totally get, because I was there too in the early MANA days. It was wonderful when it very first started. But yeah, I'm optimistic. I would love to do something like that, but we have to see a community coming out, guns ablazing, that this is going to happen, have the financial backing. I mean, it has to be something that there are many butts on fire about it, quite frankly. And we just haven't seen yet. I pray we will, but we haven't yet seen, what it will take to rebuild that, that sort of an organization. So
Been crying into the wind about this for months.
Yeah.
Like, if we had an attorney, we could have done other things. If we had support, we could have fought this a different way. We got to get to the point where we have to be sustainably focused on our own lives and our own health. So there's that. So if we have the community support, there's a lot that can be done. Absolutely.
One of the things we ran up against was the old timers, sorry for the label, who, for all of our feminism, too many women still want to be nice. And they wanted to, you know, be nostalgic about the past. And so they didn't want to not be nice by calling out what was happening now. One of the premier elements of dysfunctional systems is the no talk rule and dysfunctional loyalty. And we saw a lot of that. And there were people that were afraid. We had people that said, if we say anything, what is NARM going to do to us?
That's really, really heartbreaking. Like, do what to you? Who are these people?
They were afraid for their certifications. Whether or not that's based in reality, it doesn't matter. It was their fear. Which goes to tell you what midwifery leadership in this country is like. Not too damn different than the medical. Because we didn't make midwifery for women. We made it to fit in the patriarchal system, of which I grew up with a grandfather and a father that were doctors, straight out of Chicago. Got so damn mad anytime Reader's Digest ran an article on health because you were supposed to get that from your doctor, not a magazine.
I'm putting into the chat, just letting people know that this video of this meeting is going to be in the FAM Facebook page as well, in the group. And for folks who want to be alerted to whatever our next steps are, whatever this particular group decides the next steps are, we'll be posting it there. And I really want to invite you to invite other birthy people to come along if they wish. I don't know. I don't have to say to this crowd that midwifery is worth fighting for. We just need the support to do it. Anyone else want to say anything?
I just wanted to quickly acknowledge the elders here again and acknowledge a lifetime of standing for midwifery and not to give up yet. You know, we're, as Samsara said, we're in the process of regrouping and healing and, you know, figuring out and all those things. But let's not throw in the towel yet. There's lots to, you know, create in the future. And I hope that all of you, just like Samsara just said, will share it and put the word out there that who wants to be on this party boat. Thanks, everybody.
So to add to that, along with the video being posted, we'll include a really simple form for people to share their email if they want to stay connected to our next steps. When I say our, I mean the people who've been involved with the recent FAM board, and of course anyone who feels devoted to those next steps. So that Facebook page will have both of those things so that people can stay connected. At this time, we still have access to our newsletter platform, but because our funds have been frozen, that may not continue. So Facebook will be, as much as I'd rather it be perhaps a different platform, that will be our main way to be able to share and connect people in terms of next steps. I did see some questions in the chat. So Sarita was asking how many people here today are MANA members. I don't know if people want to volunteer that information, but certainly in our regrouping, I think we'll see who wants to show up and whether that includes the small membership of that organization or not.
Because I want to point out that while people say, well, I'm not part of MANA, this has nothing to do with me. These people have their conference circuit that they go to and present themselves as the face of American midwifery.
So that's sincerely problematic right there.
Let me see some, sorry, we're at 5 after. I don't know if anyone else present in the Zoom has any other questions or comments, or if you wanted to close the meeting.
If there are no more comments or questions, then we can move toward the closing. We will definitely, oh, I see a hand up there. Sarita, hi.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank you for all the work you've done and for your commitment to this. I know how hard it is, and I know how dangerous it can be. Well, I know that asking questions to answer somebody else's earlier comment can bring violence upon you. And I know that this issue has been something that I have experienced that violence as a result of. I think that I would like to echo what was said earlier about Manistats. And I do have a good bit of inside information about Manistats. I was very involved in its transition and in researching the history so we could understand the importance, the financial backing of it, and how it can be used in the future. So I would like to continue to be involved and, get updates. And in particular, I would like to encourage the support for the project of Manistats, and that it be given the emphasis and the financial support and the visionary work that it requires to be able to really do what the new version of it is possible, is fully capable of doing, that most people are totally unaware of. So thank you very much for doing this work. I'm glad to see it continue, and yeah, good job, everybody.
I want to point out that Sarita is the only reason why Manistats got a new platform. If not, that's not to say no one else was involved, but she got the people who developed it in the game. And without her, it would still be on an old rickety platform.
Anything else someone would like to say or add?
One more thing, and then I promise I'll shut up. I'd like to acknowledge Samsara Morgan for incredible leadership, and girl, you're just like crazy glue. You just stick with shit. And I just really admire that about you. And I appreciate you. And I love you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I love all you guys. And we must do better. We must do better.
I got another couple of years before my book is going to be near a publisher. So there's time for this to have a better ending.
That would
So, like the title of my book, A Parcel of Murdering Bitches, Childbirth and Women's Autonomy from the Virginia Colony to the Me Too movement. Let's be more than a parcel.
Yes, absolutely. We must be. So that's this all being said, I think that's a perfect spot to end right there. And I love you all. Thank you all for your time this morning. I'm gonna go kiss my new grandson. Be well. You'll be hearing from us.
Thank you, everyone. Much
Thank
love.
you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Is it just us here?
Yeah,
Just
stop
us.
the
Stop recording.